Hello, everyone. I, Radhika Khurana, welcome you to yet another episode of Lawyer Speaks presented to you by Law Community, wherein we might invite brilliant minds of legal fraternity so that you get to peek into their lives and get to know their stories. And today we have with us a young mind, Ms. Malvika Rajkumar, a content lead at Vidhi Center for Legal Policy. She also has been part of research and development wing of Indian National Bar Association. She has always been driven towards social welfare and wants to provide information to common man in the easiest way possible.
Hello, ma'am. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, ma'am. Ma'am, what motivated you towards law?
So as a child, I had been in and out of courts because my parents had gone through a divorce. And starting from that point, I was always fascinated with advocates and judges. That was how I got to actually understand the role law plays in our daily lives, basically my entire childhood experience. And as I grew older, even when I went into 12th and I did commerce, I knew that law was something I definitely wanted to get into. So that's how I actually got inspired to move into law. But in terms of why I actually really got motivated to do law was because I've always wanted to be part of a movement where I could facilitate change. And I felt that the best way to do so is to do it through the law and to be a lawyer. So that is like specifically why I thought that law is a good field to get into for a lot of students. And despite a lot of the stigma attached to it, which many households go through, I feel that it's one of the most useful subjects, especially a woman can learn.
Ma'am, do you think doing moots in colleges are important in a law student's career?
Yes, definitely. Doing moots is very important. I myself have done 4, 5 moots throughout my college years and have been part of mooting societies where research has been discussed. Mooting is especially important for 2 to 3 reasons. One, in terms of your research skills, because in colleges, when you actually start learning subjects, you don't really get to practically implement them. In moots you have problems and you have solutions. You have to research in such a way that there's you see an end to it. So I feel that to hone your research skills, mooting is very important. Secondly, I feel in terms of team building, mooting is very important in terms of how to work with your teammates. It gives you a lot of ideas on how to actually pitch ideas for that matter, how to work with someone else, how to structure everything in a way where the ultimate result, which is your memo that you prepare out of the moot, is a collective effort. And it's a great initiative for law students to understand how to actually move forward into the legal fraternity. And thirdly, in terms of advocacy and speaking skills, mooting is very vital in terms of your confidence, your research skills, and also in terms of how you present that research. At the end of the day, if you can't communicate the research that you've done, then you are really failing at whatever you do. So it becomes very essential in terms of people who want to move into advocacy or public speaking spaces to actually do moots. Even those, especially doing litigation, especially need to try out moots or at least trial advocacy competitions, etc. That's why I feel mooting is very important.
Right, ma'am. Ma'am, what entails under the job profile of being a content lead?
So, under the ambit of content lead, you have a lot of work that gets covered. To name a few, starting with actually looking at the quality of research, because in my position, I was a content writer before, but now that I've moved on to become content lead, my main job is to make sure that whatever information that finally goes out to the public is of quality, more than quantity, and to make sure that the research is correct and that there are no sentences written in a way where it's open to interpretation, because that's one of the key problems with law. It may be vaguely drafted and you may get confused. So in terms of checking research accuracy, I have a lot of responsibility like that. Then in terms of managing content itself, because on our website we have to put out content monthly, and we also are trying to scale up content by doing content curation at this point. So as content lead, I also have the responsibility of managing different teams, and this includes a lot of law students that work with the Vidhi Center for Legal Policy through the Kautilya Society, and it also includes managing timelines for content to make sure that topics which are relevant in the news cycle are all put up on the website. And thirdly, and I think this is one of the underlining work that I keep having, is content updation, basically, because law is such that it needs to be constantly updated. I would say law is like coding. You have to keep doing it. You can't just end it there. So making sure that the content is of a good quality and it is updated according to the latest amendments, notifications, rules, all kinds of subordinate legislation. This is also a primary area of my job.
And that's very fascinating. Ma'am, you said that you started as a content writer. Ma'am, how was your journey and what challenges did you face?
All right. So I had started as a legal content analyst or a content writer in the development space around 2-3 years back. And when I had started, it was quite a challenge to get used to the style of writing in Nyaya more than anything, because Nyaya content is simple, it's actionable, and it aims to drive collective and individual action. So writing content became like basically getting it into a certain structure was the actual challenge. In terms of research, especially, that has always been a comfort area of mine. I always researched in college also as part of many projects, basically. So your research skill get honed basically over time, and they get more and more better because you are now learning from people who have already worked in the field. So that way it was a very good experience. Content writing, though, after a point you may get a little bored of it. That is something that may happen, but at the same time, that is continuous research is something that you have to do in academia, no matter which academic space you go to, be it public policy, be it teaching. So someone who really enjoys working continuously on various issues would really enjoy being a content writer, and I've really enjoyed my journey through that. Even now I do research because I have to keep content updated, but it's a good venture to get in.
Ma'am, you just said Nyaya. So ma'am, what is it and what is its main aim and what work does it entail?
Sure. So Nyaya is an initiative of Vidhi Center for Legal Policy, New Delhi. It is funded by Rohini Nilekani Philanthropies and by Mekin Maheshwari. So basically what we do is we write simple, actionable, recallable, and authoritative content for people to come back to. Right now, if you see both in terms of physical paper and in terms of the online space, you don't see a lot of initiatives where the law is actually explained to people. And in fact, I'm sure many of us always Google various situations where laws are involved. And that's the thing, law is everywhere, no matter what field you go to, be it medicine, be it engineering. And we felt it's required as a team to bring about a platform which basically gives an avenue for people to see how the law actually affects them. I can give an example. For example, you take the concept of identification proof. Apart from knowing how to actually file your Aadhaar, what are the steps involved in it, we also give them an idea of how the law actually works. about timelines, about penalties, about the various authorities involved. And the starting point of a lot of concepts come from a law, which is the basis of a lot of the spheres that we have. So that's especially important. And we in Nyaya, we are now putting out information not only on our website, we've also been doing it across our social media platforms. Again, social media is also key to dissemination of information. So we are highly involved in weekly sessions where we explain laws. We partner with community organizations who work on the field, who can bring their experiences, and users also get to directly interact with them during our live sessions. Now, these are just some of the key aspects on what we do. We also have the website in multiple languages, because law is not just for people who speak English. So we have the website in Hindi, and we will soon be launching in Kannada also. Our long-term goal is to have content curated in various languages, so that anyone can open the internet and type Nyaya and actually find that there is a place where you can go to understand the law, even if you want to approach a lawyer, because it's always good to be informed. And that is something which we want to keep going at.
Wow, ma'am, that's amazing. Always good to be informed. I think that's the key. Uh, Ma'am, what advice would you give to law students who want to become content creators and writers?
All right. So, from my experience, I would say that one of the key, the main advice I would give any law student who wants to get into, regardless of content writing, I would say research is research. They have to do a lot of research in law school. Now, it also depends on the kind of law school you go to. Unfortunately, many law schools don't have such facilities to provide students the platform to do research, but that should not be a issue, because there are various platforms like Law Community, for example, various platforms now providing research opportunities. So continuous internships, signing up for projects, working with your teachers, coming up with ideas and working with your teammates, volunteering with NGOs, research for particular funded projects that your college may be willing to do, getting yourself involved in moots, competitions, and especially writing research papers throughout college, because many students struggle to actually sit and write down a lot of information, but when they do, they realize, like maybe during exam time or something like that, that they actually understood the concept. And that's what's key in terms of research, that you have to understand what you're writing about, because you're not just reproducing volumes of information. We have our bare axe for that, we have our books for that. So I would say that building a very good curriculum vitae to show that you're interested in research is key. Now, you may not exactly know which research to actually go into. Do I go into social welfare? Do I go into civil? Do I go into company laws? But the fact is, if you show that you have the drive to do research, then later over time, you'll also get to know what kind of research you want to get into. So I would say research, research, and research. That is essential in law.
Ma'am, apart from research, you're also an expert in infographics and designing. Where does that interest come from?
I wouldn't say I'm an expert at it. I would say that I broke into it during my first year of work, and it's something which is very essential to my work, even as content lead. Now, when I initially started designs and infographics, it was mostly on a free platform tool called Canva. It was very easy to do. Anyone can actually, with a slight interest in research, can get into it. In designing, can get into it. And it started with presentation of information. Now, this is where design actually comes into play. How do you actually write the content? How do you actually present it? What are the color schemes you want to go for? All this is very essential if you're ever entering a development, campaigning, or advocacy space, because you need to be very creative in terms of how you present data. Now, especially in Nyaya, we have a lot of multimedia content. So this became something that I sort of had to do, but I also wanted to do. So that's how I really got into it. But in terms of my role currently and how design plays a role, is that design uh, right now plays a major part in terms of how the information is presented. So there is a term for this, it's called information design. There's a lot of literature on this. Mostly design students look into it, sadly, but now there have been intersectional spaces of public policy and design also coming up. So for Nyaya, we look at information design and information architecture, where we look at how the data is presented on a website. Is it easy to understand? Is it easy to access? Are there enough parameters for people to go onto without wanting to leave the website? So there are a lot of aspects of design that come into play here, and I would say that this is very important no matter which field you go into. You take litigation, for example, you have to draft a plaint a certain way. So there's design there also. So design is also, I would say, something that comes arm in arm with law. But in my field, especially content writing, especially designing is very important in terms of how you present information. So that's how I actually got into it.
Ma'am, this is an information that is new to me as well, so thank you. Uh, Ma'am, could you share with your audience your views about social welfare legislations in India and its effectiveness?
Sure. So, social welfare legislations, as I'm sure many of the audiences know, is a lot of it has come up over time, and it has come up because of various campaigns from various marginalized communities, especially. Now, apart from concepts like financial inclusion, if I'm taking the example of, let's say, protection of women, which I have worked with for quite a bit, I would say that there's been significant progress starting from 1997, when in the Vishaka judgment case till today. We have a sexual harassment at the workplace law, we have maternity benefit act, we have a lot of legislations in place. But I would say, just taking this for example, I would say implementation is always a problem when it comes to social welfare legislations. You take an example of Domestic Violence Act and how it's implemented, and you will see there are a lot of issues with the way protection officers function, etc. So I would say that even though on paper we have a lot of social welfare legislations out there, practically a lot of the people who are supposed to access this don't really do. Now, keeping in mind COVID, also the COVID pandemic, also I would say that now social welfare legislations require a very futuristic approach. You take, for example, education. You have to look at it in terms of digital inclusiveness now. You can't just say that you've given someone the right to education, but you're not providing them means to get it. So I would say that India is definitely evolving every day, developing in terms of the rights. We have rights that many communities have, but again, monitoring and implementation are key in terms of actually making sure that the welfare legislation provides for welfare.
Thank you for your time, ma'am, and stay safe. Thank you.